Alright, who's ready for our trip to... Where does your grandpa live again?
Nebraska.
Oh yeah, right, Nebraska.
How long will it be till we get there?
Let's see, we're approaching Council Bluffs, and the GPS says we'll be there in 3 hours.
Day 2.
I thought you said we'd be there by now.
Oh, we will, just slight detour, we'll be there in no time.
Day 3.
What detour is this?
Taking us through Oiblaf.
What's Oiblaf?
Don't tell me you haven't heard of Oiblaf.
I obviously haven't. What it?
Oh, it's on the way to Nebraska.
How much longer?
Don't worry, we'll be there before you can say a really short sentence.
Day 4.
Now where are we?
Oh, we just got out of Oiblaf. We're in Azeroth now.
Oh, for the love of...
The Backstates. I just have one question.
What are those?
All jokes aside, though, seriously, what are these? It's weird. It's like the back rooms, but for truckers. The Wiki defines the Backstates as an extra-dimensional space in the heart of the United States. The Backstates area stretches over about 2 lower 48s. Now, that Wiki I mentioned, it's got around 140 pages. But funny thing, despite not being popular, it's got that signature Reddit oversaturation / inflation that the Backrooms and SCP have. But at the same time, it's an obscure enough concept to where it's not even fully realized yet. Like, no one can agree on the exact number of states. Like, one map has 87, the list has 88, and another map has 92. And while trying to research this, I found a map that was like twice the size of the supposed canon one. I discovered the Backstates like 1 or 2 months ago, I think. And I thought, hey, that could be a fun video idea. But I was working on the Chalk Slab Island video at the time, so I decided, well, that's gonna be the next one. And through further research, I discovered that it was like a balloon, hollow, without any substance. So I made it my mission to sorta flesh out the whole thing, if you will. So, in our quest to do this, we must first answer, what are the Backstates? Yes, I know, I've asked this question like 3 times, but I'm just trying to hammer the point home, okay? My theory is that they're not some extra-dimensional space like the Backrooms, because with the Backrooms, you just randomly no-clip. But with the Backstates, you straight up just drive into it. Like, you don't feel anything weird, you just drive in. And there's no way to tell how you can get in or get out either. So my theory is that the Backstates are a fold in the fabric of reality. Not like a fold in the earth, because that would be very noticeable, and we already have a few of those. No, a fold in the fabric of reality itself, where reality just kinda goes in this V type of shape down to a certain point. And this fold is thin enough to where, if you're lucky, you can basically just drive right over it. The way I see it is like a piece of paper. Like, you have a folded map of the lower 48. And then you unfold it, and there are the Backstates. And if you drive over the folded map in your microscopic little car, you won't get to the Backstates. So we have to figure out how to unfold the map. But that would require diving into theoretical quantum physics and things that would make nerds very, very happy. So I'm just gonna save you all that and get to the part where it's already unfolded. Alright, as you can see, we are on the bridge between Omaha and Council Bluffs, right where the main entrance to the Backstates is. I'm gonna try and drive this car into the crack, and I'll see if we'll be on the other side. Okay, Going slow. Going fine. Okay, oh! Good. Good. Okay, this don't look like Omaha. I think we're here. This is our first backstate, also known as Oiblaf. Now, the wiki says that Oiblaf is basically a carbon copy of Nebraska, and then another part of the wiki says that it is Nebraska? See, here's that inconsistency I was talking about earlier. Like, apparently Nebraska itself is a backstate now, but we can see Nebraska on non-backstate maps! Okay, I'm getting a little, nutsy cuckoo, so I'm just gonna run through each state, starting now. First off, Azeroth. Azeroth is an eastern backstate known for having nearly half of its area being urban. It's unknown how this megalopolis of nearly 45 million people came to be. Some say it's always been here, some say that the natives built it, some say that the Spanish and even the Americans later on built it. But there's no clear evidence for any one of these sides of the argument. A large part of Azerothian culture is that if you breathe in the air at night, you will let bad luck and curses into your household. Astria is one of the larger backstates in terms of population, having 87 million people. It has a large landmark in its capital called The Apprentice, and it's made up of the remains of a former state called Omain. Basie is far less populated than these previous two, at only 690,000 people, though most of those live on the western side of the state, past the Relidonia Mountains, because in West Allensburg, a giant factory blew up, killing everything within a 1-mile radius. Bestings is horrible. It's what the Ohio memes made Ohio out to be. Apparently, the natives put so many curses on this place that it's borderline uninhabitable. There was a big famine in 1980, and a giant fog that's been there for the last 35 years, since 1990, and 1 in 3 Bestings residents are uneducated. There's no infrastructure outside of dirt roads outside of the capital city of Usgard. Binri. Most of it is a white desert, and it's called the industrial state due to the fact that it has lots of factories and power plants. So many, in fact, that people from other backstates come and work here. Central Majek is an infinite graveyard. All there are trees, headstones, and abandoned churches. Central Trankland is one of the few states entirely inhabited by aliens, and also one of the states that borders Lake Doramos, this giant lake in the middle of the backstates. It also hosts only one of 6 backstates TV stations. Living here must be a nightmare for sure. Chaster. Chaster is different, as it's a theocracy rather than a republic like all the other states. It was initially inhabited by a large amount of Native American tribes, like the Inagonka, but everything changed when the settlers came in and made it their own. Fast forward hundreds of years, and unlike the other states, which have counties, this state has parishes. This state's communities are very small, usually only pushing upwards of 20,000, but one thing it's really known for is being really corrupt. Haskell is known for wheat fields. These wheat fields only appear when not being directly observed by people, and farmers try to grab these up and turn them into farmland whenever they can. Meals in the state usually consist of beef franks, white bread, mac and cheese, ranch dressing, and a cold can of Minute Maid, which honestly sounds like something that'd be served at like a family gathering. Creatures known as Eyebale live in the state and are in the signature dish Eyebale Wellington, though they are overhunted and are scarce. Clome is known for 3 things: having advanced darkness during the night, fire beasts, and being one big swamp. As you can see by the border at Yurst, it looks like a Minecraft biome barrier. It was one of 13 states to be within the mid North American time shift zone, and it is the only state to almost always support the Libertarian Party in an election. This land is famous for its difficulty to enter the state, human rights violations, and cubic cities, like its capital, Waka, part of which is submerged underground. Discland has 600 of these underground cities, which contain 98% of Discland's 10 million people, the other 2% living on the surface. Doramos is one of several states that border a lake of the same name. It's known for having floating rocks, and because of these floating rocks, the mountains in the state have been uninhabitable since the Ice Age. There isn't much known about Ghoster, other than its hills, desert, and had a weird battle thing between leaders, where at the end, one of the guys ate one of the other guy's right foot and gave the bones to the other people. I hate this so much. Okay, so quick before we get to the choir, a lot of the articles have a thing where it'll say that it needs to be rewritten. Each reason is different every time. The one for the choir says, Vector's an idiot. But going back to the choir, really the one thing it's known for is having its one capital city take up 3/4 of its population, and really nothing else really. The western part of Eastern Draytid is a poople. Yes, that's what the wiki says. It borders the back provinces of Canada and is very cold and sad. It also has swamps in the eastern parts of the state where there are amphibious octopi that hunt aquatic mammals. These amphibious octopi almost went extinct in the 70s due to Japanese people using them in their dishes, but since then they've made a recovery. Austere holds the record for being the longest permanently inhabited region on Earth, at 16,000 years. Its flag, which the top half is green and the southern half is white, showing the forested and snowy parts of the state. Also, the name of its capital is Sneedum. Also, in the southern part of the state, there's a violent insurgency going on. Like previously covered states, Fitrite is mostly swamps, except for a part on the coast of Lake Doramos, which is much resembling like central Florida, Orlando, that area. But anything outside of that is the boonies. The hood. It's also theorized to have a connection with the western border of Maryland, which is, weirdly enough, very, very far from the main entrance at the bridge between Omaha and Council Bluffs. Frecht, which, judging from the flag, is inhabited entirely by Warhammer nerds. It's inhabited by about 30 tribes that barely have anything written about them. Galrafona is completely enclosed in a wall. The reason for said wall is that because in 1972 there was the sudden appearance of these large, slender, humanoid things called skitters. These skitters completely devastated everything in the state, eliminating entire settlements and wildlife. So within a few years, it became an utter wasteland, and the only people who ever come to the state are those who drive through it. There have been efforts to reclaim it in recent years, though it's a very, very slow process. Gintask is a fogland state. Fogland states permanently have British skies. This particular state is inhabited by the Scrapmen, a race of people who will extract maximum value from whatever abandoned thing they find. The reason the Scrapmen exist? Because the state is abysmally poor, well, Backstates. As a result, if you are even parked within the state for, I don't know, like 5 minutes, you will come back to your car completely stripped of everything. Basically, Detroit and Romania. Speaking of stealing, Glade is famous for its ores. Except these ores aren't actually from Glade. No, they're from Von Dytid. It frames these stolen minerals as exports and sells them to the US government through Texas. There's rumored to be a portal from here to Texas, but yeah, that's up for discussion. Grantor is inhabited by a human subspecies called the Farges. They look like a weird mix of Reddit avatars and Teletubbies. Green Acres is a state with almost nothing on it, other than the fact that it has no paved roads, and the only roads that are there are made of sand. Also, it was apparently edited so that there wouldn't be a reference to a low-effort anthro-animal race. Like, I find it funny. Civil unrest, horrible creatures that can devour entire states, people eating feet. Yeah, that's perfectly fine for the Backstates. But furries? That's a line you should not cross. Green Rock is a state that has one defining trait. It is big. Also, its wiki article is written in broken English, I assume by either a 9-year-old or someone who never paid attention in English class. Raider is the second state in a row that we've covered with one defining trait. Milk. Going into the H's, we have Healthland. And despite its name and having banned a popular restaurant chain, this place laughs in the face of healthcare. Tourists often flock to the state for its unusual menu, and 99.6% of the residents are morbidly obese. And while only being 0.045% of the US population, it takes up 20% of the human mass. Which, even if we are accounting for the rest of the backstates and the front states, people here weigh several thousand pounds. Like, this isn't even regular obesity anymore. No, this is TLC obesity. Moving on to Hefor, this is yet another state with one defining trait, where dogs and humans switch places. Herds is a state of only 50,000 people and grows a plant called the piranha plant. Or at least it was. Apparently it was on the wiki for a little while, but everyone figured out piranha plant was copyrighted, so they just put little hyphens instead. Hester's has a strong Saxon culture that dates back to the 7th century. Apparently back in medieval times it had a war with Discland. But nowadays it has a constitutional monarchy as its government. Oh, and the people there have a lot of guns. There's virtually nothing on Iobite other than the fact that when the page was last edited, it was going to have an election in November of 2022. The election would be between current Governor Johann Busch and rising candidate Eoperd. Unlike Hester's, which is a constitutional monarchy, Eoperd is an absolute monarchy under the reign of Louis the 99th. And like that one part of Maine and the southern part of Louisiana, it mostly speaks French. Erskeden has ruins that date back to 2300 BC, the biggest of which is a city called Jojolim. Jaquap is a backstate with a flag that looks like a crudely drawn bow and arrow. Also, its residents live in cubes made from plastic and glass. Also, the state's wiki page has another one of those things talking about how there was a reference to a low-effort anthro-animal race that had to be removed. Desk is in a civil war. The 14th one to be in fact. And this civil war has been going on since 1997, though on the wiki it says it's been going for 23 years, implying that the article hasn't been touched since 2020. Also, remember that other war from earlier that Discland was involved in? Yeah, it had an imperium that got shattered, and this new backstate came out of it. It used to have a monarchy until the Civil War came around. And speaking of history, there's a lot of it that I'm not going to go over. You can read it yourself on the wiki. But one thing I would like to highlight is that the war started because the king, Charles I, was assassinated on June 33rd. And honestly, this civil war has more lore to it than just about every other backstate combined. Judasis is the most famous of the backstates inhabited by the Tranquita alien race, and these aliens brought some friends with them, such as walkers and drones. The state is in completely perpetual twilight all the time. Now, there's nothing interesting about Kaleen itself, but there is something interesting about what it borders. See, all of these backstates border Mexico, which has its own backstates. One of these backstates is called Shiba Inu. And from Shiba Inu's mere presence, I can construct the thought process of the bozo who wrote this article. Allow me to act it out for you. This Mexican state is called Chihuahua. It must have been named after the small dog. But what to name the Mexican backstate that borders Kaleen? I have an idea. Martha!
Yes.
What is the breed of the canine we have living in this household?
It's a Shiba Inu. Of Quit talking fancy.
Ah, yes. The Mexican backstate of Shiba Inu. Moving on to Kralog, this is the first one whose wiki article has pictures, even though they're AI generated, which is kind of a letdown. But the big thing about this state is that there's lots of volcanoes here along the mountain range, one of which doesn't erupt lava. It erupts eagles.
Oh, that's a true symbol of freedom.
In fact, this has to be one of the more in-depth backstates. Certainly the only one I've come across so far with pictures. And it sort of helps to really get an idea of what's here. Kralag's history is actually very in-depth, surprisingly, as the history is split into several sections. Also, it has a 1,000,000-foot tall mountain, and apparently that helped in the space race. That's cool. Okay, we're getting back to the states with a bit less detail with Las Foradas. And looking, there are 3 Mexican backstates that border it. Not only Shiba Inu, but also Sipusky and Shepard. Do I need to remind anyone of that little skit I did just now? But other than the Mexican backstates that it borders, apparently it's very well known for being very degenerate. It's even called the Sodom and Gomorrah state. Moving on to Last Land, this place is just the happiest place I've ever seen. Also, it borders 2 Mexican backstates called Boxer and Maltipoo. Also, the entire article's in broken English. We're finally returning to form with Leshed, with it actually being a developed state, comprised mostly of suburbs. Also, it's the one state with a brain. Lost, unlike its neighbors, is very, very rich. Its cities are located inside of jungles, and the state has a large amount of national parks. Mesfait is divided into its upper and lower half. The big thing about this state is that literally any action costs money, and that's how they get ya. So much of the state is filled with theme parks and stuff, and you think you're only paying for food and rides and all that other stuff, but you're also paying for breathing. Usually it'll be at about $5 to $10 per breath, and as a result of this, you can accumulate so much debt in just a single day. In fact, if you stay there a week, with the money you spend just by breathing, you can accumulate $1,008,000 of debt. Not a lot of people can pay that, so they have to work it off. But they can only work it off within the state. But being within the state costs money. So it's this endless spiral of hard labor and losing money. As a result, the quote-unquote indentured servants of Mesfait aren't even from the state. The theme parks aren't even that great either. There are rides such as the Electro Coaster, where you're stripped naked and are grinded against metal, as well as the Trauma Pod, where it's literally made to be the most uncomfortable experience possible. Naserd, according to the wiki, before its editing was a back state. Wow, even more lore. And it was inhabited by Neanderthal-like creatures. New Canada has a company called Brand E Inc. from there. New Frasur is named after Frasur, an ancient civilization of 6 different tribes that existed from the 1100s to the 1500s. 98% of the population practices some sort of native or animist religion. New Madrid is called that because of its large Hispanic population, and was once home to a species called the Cortesians, which were genocided by the Spanish in the 1500s. It has a large manufacturing industry and has had gradual desertification for the last 5,000 years. Also, at one point in the article, it's called New Mexico, which I find pretty hilarious. New Nantes is confusing. Seriously. I can't get a single bit of information out of this article other than it has to do with quantum physics. New Passier has 80 billion people living in it and has the highest GDP of any state in the Union. I'm honestly surprised this doesn't result in like record high inflation, but I'm assuming this article was either written by an uneducated basement dweller or a 9-year-old, so I'll let it slide. This state actually has trillionaires in it, and the dwellings are adorned with gold and silver, and the entire state is covered in high-rises. Though this state does have poor people who live in underground parts of the state, so I'm assuming this place looks like Coruscant. New Tates borders the Relidonia Mountains mentioned earlier, which have rainforests, and these rainforests have ghost trains that people get on to go into the rainforests and never come out again. New Virginia is populated by West Virginians who were loyal to the Confederacy and left after West Virginia seceded. Vormia apparently has movie theaters that work like virtual reality rides at theme parks. North Dosha is primarily known for having all of its cuisine being shaped like the state itself. Also, it's apparently full of civil rights activists. North Mondeck isn't anything too special other than the fact that it has one county, Washington County, that is an anarchaic community, and one of its 3 communities is called Cheesebogar. North de Ramos has a single thing going on, where in every county, except for Peppermill County, there are these weird laws, like the fact that it's illegal for truckers to wear shoes. Are we seriously going back to the feet thing again? Also, North de Ramos and regular de Ramos have this very weird rivalry going on. Ofare has been inhabited by large, intelligent canines since 5000 BC.
Hold up.
Wait, I thought furries were illegal in the Backstates. They're suddenly good here? Also, apparently back in like the 600s and 700s, these said canines were Muslim. Yeah, so not only are the inhabitants of Ofare dogs, they are loyal followers of Allah. Oibadona is a majority African-American state, with another large third of its population being Native American, which is a common trend throughout the Backstates. Apparently living here makes your skin hurt so much that you have to get a vaccination for it to stop. Also, it says here that the National Guard is fighting against...
Nice job, team.
Yeah, this is so much effort. All of the residents in Anfram are dark. No, not like dark, like in Oibandona. I mean, like black and gray. And again, they look like the weird Reddit avatar Teletubby mix. It's also really silent and has a lack of governors and flowers. Open Sky has a population of 2 trillion people. Yeah, remember when I said New Passier was special because it had 80 billion? Yeah, this dwarfs that for seemingly no reason. And it's this nice, futuristic metropolis without any problems whatsoever. Though I'm sure weird problems would have been written had someone taken the time to write more than 2 paragraphs on the article. Estona has nothing to it. I mean, it's got some restaurants, and its fruit is the pear. And in the article, it says national fruit. Isn't that cool, guys? Texas is a state where most of its residents migrated from an ancient city called Mahoto. Apparently the governor's name is Ace Leon, which honestly sounds like an anime character, but my guess is that these governor names are names of people that these article writers know. Unlike most of the other states, which sort into the billions and trillions of people that live there, Platschi only has 8,700. Nice break, to be honest, from these giant city-states, basically. People of Paxos live in little communities, usually of 100 to 150. Hasted is a single city, and this city surprisingly has quite a bit of lore to it, like even like subcultures, like the Constructo punks. Also, opium's always been legal here. Okay, Raxasland has to have the smallest article I have ever seen. Like, this is, like, 2-3 sentences. Apparently it's called the Sesame State at... Oh my goodness. One of the Mexican backstates is it's called Smalley Doggo. They're not even trying anymore. It's just... What? Read it is made up of 2 major parts. Montanium and the autonomous state of Leonroth. It's also part of a region of the Backstates called the Blood Belt that experiences blood rain. That you didn't feel the need to mention that in any of the other articles. Also, apparently Lewis and Clark went here. Wow, new Lewis and Clark DLC lore just dropped. Rete has about 320,000 people. Only a few hundred of those are not slaves. Much of the state's land is owned by these private enterprise type of people. And it also has a lot of bridges and roads. Good to know. And I'm doing all of this from there's a page on the wiki called List of Backstates. It'll usually put the name, the population, and the government type. For the state I just covered, it says can't summarize right now. Ronald has nothing on it other than the fact that it used to be named Brent. I'm pretty sure SOPMEG is a research facility, but the article made it unclear. Salvador is dominated by an ideology called Salvadorian nihilist. This ideology has ideas that children aren't sentient until they are 3 years old, and that humans are naturally insane and have to be shown things to prove that reality is real. Aquan has swamps that smell like carcasses. Sealide used to be called Cheetahland. Why was it called Cheetahland? Because it had lions. It also has a film industry in a place called Cheetahwood. Shandalbor, it borders Labrador and Retriever. Apparently, Shandal is one big suburb with a few urban areas. The culture is surprisingly normal by Backstate standards, resembling that of Texas. One big thing, though, is truck cities, which, judging by this image, is possibly the most American thing in existence. Slaverb has its capital named Slaverbington. Also, its flag was drawn by a 4-year-old child. But I can't complain because when it comes to anything outside of maps and ponies, I can't draw for Dookie. South Dosha borders Poodle and Rottweiler. Like, I thought with Shiba Inu it was a one-time thing, but there's like 10 of them now. And they aren't even Mexican dog breeds. Like, are we gonna come across a Mexican Spanish-speaking backstate called German Shepherd? Like, this is honestly the most insane part of the Backstates, but by far. Anyway, back to South Dosha, it's inhabited by whatever this is. Tendir is an orange desert with a blue forest in the eastern part. Also cities. Yes. I'm gradually being convinced that this was written by young children. And I believe I know the nature of the culprits. 2020. The backrooms are getting more popular, and there are children watching Backrooms videos. And here we have the creator of the Backstates, Random 6-year-old from North Carolina. Now, Random 6-year-old from North Carolina, yes, that's his actual name, has a brain disorder where he's completely incapable of making original ideas. So, he tries to make a copy of the Backrooms, but is stuck for an idea to make it, like, set apart. Coincidentally, also around this time, his family is going to visit his grandma in Oklahoma. And his parents spent too much on Funko Pops, so they can't fly, so instead they have to drive. And they did it all in one swoop too, and he was awake the whole time. Now, he was incredibly bored and had to look at everything, for he had no iPad to look at, for he was caught watching Paw Patrol without his pants on. This incredible amount of boredom made him thought he had entered the Backrooms, but then he had an idea. So it's basically the back rooms. But you drive. All of his friends at kindergarten loved it. He had one of his older cousins make a half-decent 4chan story, and it soon grew to where it is today. Abandoned after 3 years. And you can tell what was part of the original lore by a lack of spelling mistakes and other types of stuff. And then you could tell the stuff random 6-year-old from North Carolina did himself. Going back to Tendir, there's also the little tidbit that gasoline is replaced by water in the pumps, which cannot be good for the cars. Carpas speaks French. But despite this, according to the 1998 state census, 51% of the people were of unknown ethnic origin. The Pent is very large and mostly agricultural, and this is one of the few states that actually decides to go deep, but not in the deep that we'd like. More deep with the fact that it tells you the exact median age of the state and how many people are employed by the government. Yeah. This state in particular's wiki also has a biodiversity section. Trimeta is entirely covered in road, the widest of which is its 100,000 lane highway. And given the fact that the average lane in the United States is about 12 feet in width, that would mean that this highway is 1.2 million feet wide, or 227 miles. That is the distance between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. And just about every type of road exists here in Trimeta, like funnel roads that go in a funnel shape, loop-de-loop roads, underwater roads, and upside-down roads. Also, apparently it has some weird quantum thing going on like New Nantes does. Also, inconsistency I found. On the summary for the state, it says the capital is called Guimon, but on a map, the capital is called Median. Again, inconsistency. Trimeta also has a brain, and it used to be the size of Rhode Island, but it had to grow while taking land from Bastings. Tiedon, like New Virginia, is one of the two states that LARP being the CSA, but are still part of the USA no matter how much they try. Everybody lives in shanty towns, basically making this the white trash state. Tyres has a flag with two colors. The left yellow side represents PP, and the right brown side represents poo-poo. Tyres is surrounded by a wall of crap. The state is known for how stupid its residents are. Speaking of residents, the residents of Tyres use every drug known to man, and the minimum age for using these drugs? 4 years old. Yes, children. In the capital city, Spagonia, people live in pyramids made out of crap. The one thing they do here is mate with their computers. Also, people in the capital city seem to have a fetish of drawing on each other's privates with felt tip markers. This one definitely came from Reddit. But you want to know what is illegal? Santa Claus and butt plugs and toilets. And in here, in the trivia, it says, despite their constant drug use, Tyres has never invented a drug. Probably because of their constant drug use. Which sounds like something you'd find in a Douglas Adams book. Ubiland sounds like it should be in Africa. And it definitely acts like it is, as it has dangerous terrain as well as high poverty and crime. Also, there are these things called gargoyles that people eat that they just don't look right. Uebard is just a big city. Again, Upends was discovered by a guy moving along Route 83.4, which, honestly, I can believe routes having decimals due to the sheer amount of land that these backstates take up. Anyway, after however many years of being a state, in 2019, the entirety of Upends just disappeared. Upper Notch, also known as Peru Land, is a theocracy which practices a special form of Christianity called Peruvian Baptist. The governing system is very strange, as a governor can serve 2 terms, each of these terms being 2 years long, meaning a governor can serve up to 4 years in office. But the real weird stuff happens when a governor is replaced. The old governor will be executed, all of his laws will be reversed, the entire state will get a new name, new anthem, new everything, really. The governor will give himself a new title, like, I don't know, King of the Known Universe, and any rival groups will be executed. Yeah, totally not a revolution at all. Though the reason it's called Upper Notch by most is because that's the name it had when it was admitted into the Union. Londited is the location of a thing known as the Earth's Heart, which protects it from outside disasters. Though it is being mined away by the United States government, which will probably result in the suffering of Londited in the long run. Wells is pretty average, other than the fact that it has its own cryptid called the Wells Man, which I'm honestly surprised other states don't have something like this. Western Droid is the most mountainous state in the whole Union. As a result, towns are built like bunkers into the mountains. The state has 2 main mountain ranges, the Eastern Western Droid Mountains and the Western Droid Mountains. Going outside is dangerous in this state though, as winds in this area can get up to 67 miles per hour, and over 1,000 wind-related fatalities happen every year. Yerst is home to many inventors, including the guy who invented the electric rake. Yerst borders the Reladonia mountain range in the south, but other than that, it's pretty arid and mostly comprises of a desert, which houses Dancing Jeremiah. And you might be asking, who? What? And to that I say, jeez, stop being so whiny, I was just getting that, jeez. Basically, once you encounter him, you have to keep doing the hillbilly jig with him, but if you stop, you die. In Zackers, there are mooples. Mooples taste good. They are used for food. And we did it. Whew, almost 90 states down the gullet. If you've somehow made it this far without just skipping to this timestamp, you are crazy, but you're alright with me. So, with all of those states having been covered, what have we learned? What I see is a lack of unified vision. The back rooms suffers the exact same thing. Now, what is a lack of unified vision exactly? Well, both of these are known as collaborative fiction projects, which basically are completely open to the idea of having so many authors, kind of like Marvel and DC Comics. But a major problem with that is that it's horrifyingly inconsistent when an IP gets done like this. The way I know this is how differently all of the articles are written. You got one where it seems to be more of a Wikipedia style summary of the state, and then you got another where it's like this fantasy RPG type of thing. And it's really hard to trace what this is supposed to be. So, without any good idea of what the Backstates are supposed to be, I just made one up. I believe the Backstates are meant to be an exaggeration of the American flyover states. It's meant to exemplify those long hours on the highway, the tiny town in the middle of nowhere with nothing but some houses, trees, silos, and maybe a water tower. It's meant to exemplify the greasy little gas station in the middle of the cornfield. The soul of America is in its roads, its highways. The Backstates are also meant to serve as an exaggeration of America itself. Like with some states having this giant size to them that would dwarf even a continent. And I believe that there are some that already fit this mark perfectly, such as Healthland's complete disregard for human health. And, what's the state? But, you know, the one with the pee and poop flag that's filled with nothing but degenerates? I believe Tail Foundry's The Other America video will probably explain it better than I ever could, so you can go watch that instead. But after you come back, I would like to share with you some rewrites. Okay, you back? Good. Now you'll hear some of the changes I've made. First off, how do we get there? Now, unlike the back rooms where you just kind of no-clip, you have to be able to drive here. Now, if you remember earlier in the video, I discussed that there would have to be something to do with quantum physics to get here. But I didn't elaborate on what it was. But I think now is the time to tell you the secret.
Comically large space laser.
Yeah, it turns out all you have to do is just laser a certain part of the bridge from Nebraska to Iowa, and then boom, there's an entrance right there. Alright, next question. How do we get out? Same way we came in. But there may be situations where a laser portal may open randomly and then immediately close. Next question. How deep does it go? We know we have this map, but we are going to disregard that. I personally believe that the bigger the backstates are, the better, because the whole point is that it's supposed to be an exaggeration of the central states of the United States, who are famous for the fact that you can start at one side of the state and not be at the other side of the state until you have driven for 13 hours. For comparison, in Europe, you can drive through 6 countries in that same amount of time. Besides, the further you drive in, the less likely you are to get out. So let's just give the backstates the size of, I don't know, the sun seems about good. And we can't have any state have too much population, because, again, a thing with that part of the United States in real life is that there's not nearly as many people there as there are on the east and west coast. So we can't have places like New Passie that have 80 billion people in them. But that doesn't mean we can't have any unique cultures, because what I think would happen is that the further you get to the center of the backstates, the less developed it'll be, and by the time you get to the center, it looks like the Middle Ages. Superhighways evolve into regular highways. Regular highways devolved into roads. Roads devolve into gravel paths. Gravel devolves into dirt. Dirt devolves into nothing at all. Which brings me to my next question. How do the backstates vote in elections? Because if these more underdeveloped backstates have settlements in them, they would have to find some crazy way to connect with the rest of the world. Like, if a community isn't developed enough, they might not even know who's been president since Abraham Lincoln. So I believe that the federal government would have to be able to fund quantum tech for these backstates so that whoever is living in these backstates can communicate with the outside world. So this includes the internet, TV, movies, anything digital really, but especially voting. Because voting for, let's just say, a governor or mayor is easy because they are in the backstates. The president is in DC, which is not a backstate. So yeah, that would make it a lot harder. Or maybe they just vote for their own president, what do I know? Next question. How would states like Galrafona, without any people in them function. I believe that control of these states would be relinquished to the federal government. And since the entire state's been evacuated, it can just kind of be left to rot, really, without anything to do. Next question. How do people from the back states get to the front states, if they can? Again, just use the portal, bro. It's right there. Next up. Are there back states? Well, remember when I said I believe the back states had a surface area comparable to the sun? I was accounting for all the back layers of back states, if you will. And I calculated the surface area of the sun, took its square root, took the average speed of a car in the United States, driving for 12 hours, going at 70 miles an hour, driving across the widths of the back states, assuming they're a perfect square, and I came to the conclusion that it would take 169 and a half years to get across. So, if you had just finished driving in 2025, you would have been driving since 1856. So remember when I said that the inner back states would be like really underdeveloped? Yeah, screw that. There's no states there at all. Question 7. Is it connected to the back rooms? No, I don't think it is. Because the back rooms are like their own whole space. Like they are their own reality, as where the back states, I personally believe, would just be a fold in the physical reality we already have. Though you could no clip in the back states, but you'd still end up in level 0. Question A. Do other parts of the world have the same issue? Yes, I do. But what exactly connotates a region to be able to have its own back area? Could it be that it's a sovereign nation? No, I don't think so, because there's no way a back Monaco exists. I think an area would have to have at least a minimum of, say, 100,000 square mile area. So, like, Sweden, I'd say. Wait, is that 100,000 square miles? Let me check. Yeah, it's 176. But let's just say that a country the size of Greece is the minimum. But it doesn't also exclude regions of other countries. Because remember, China, Russia, the United States are huge. So regions within these countries could have their own back areas. Like back Urals, back Manchuria, back Alaska. And then I thought, what's the exact number of areas that would have this issue? And so I counted. But then I got tired of counting, and I just guessed a number. 300. I hadn't thought of it at the time, but 300 is a pretty big number. That is 300 suns worth of area within the folds of reality. The sheer potential for colonization here is insane. Question 9. Would this provide a safe haven during a catastrophe? Yes, I believe it would, because think of it, like, let's just say Omaha gets nuked in a nuclear war. Now, you just opened the portal after it closed for some reason. You drive in, and the portal is still open on the other side. You look into the portal and see Omaha get fried. But the frying stuff, the stuff from the fire, doesn't come through the portal. Maybe a little heat, but no fire. Like, if they really wanted to, the federal government could evacuate the entire U.S. population to the back states and just permanently settle there while the rest of the world is a wasteland. Now that I think about it, that would actually make a really good video game. Now, going back to the back states as they were originally written, You might have noticed that every once in a while I'd mention the back provinces of Canada and the back states of Mexico. This all confirms my theory that other countries have their own backspaces, as they're called. But what I didn't mention is an entire subcontinent called the Hybers. And I tried to find an article on it on the wiki. There is none. But judging by the name alone, I could imagine this place being very schizo. Like the king lives in a 10,000 foot tall palace guarded by 1 million guards, all in 100 foot tall golden statue suit neck. Things that shoot lasers and dinosaurs. Though most of his guards are away fighting the infantry of the Chud Empire. The Empire loses 3 centillion people per day. The Emperor sacrifices to aren't sufficing. The old gods will come down and smite all of the unborn children. But there is hope for a young elf from the Hukahlaka province. Holds the key to the stone, to the sword, to the gun, for he shall take his pills and eliminate all mental illness from Hyber. See, I mean, that's not really supposed to be the theme of the Backstates, but yeah, that sounds fun. And that brings us to the end of our discussion about the Backstates. Honestly, I'm stuck for an ending on this. Like, I honestly can't come up with anything good, so yeah, see you later. I'll see y'all when I get out of here.